We're really excited to be here as a team from Thomas Cuisine to share a healthy eating workshop. And we're going to share something today that we're all very passionate about, and that's healthy eating, good quality scratch cooked food, and really overall a great experience through food. But before we do that, I want to introduce the team. My name is Chris Nicholson at Thomas Cuisine.
My name's Alison Christensen. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition director at Enlo Health, a Gold with Distinction facility in Northern California.
I am Andrea Beachner. I am the executive chef at Logan Health in Whitefish, Montana, a Planetree member since 2002.
And my name is Rafael Hernandez. I am the culinary director out of in Central California at a community health center.
Thanks, team. So a little background on Thomas Cuisine. We're a culinary organization that supports food nutrition services in healthcare. And we're a very, very proud partner of Planetree and Person-Centered Care. So there's going to be a lot that we're going to learn about today. But before I do that, I want to take everybody in the room through a little bit of an exercise. And this exercise, was everybody here on Monday? Did anybody see Tim Cunningham? Everybody? Yeah, seeing a lot of nods in the audience. Okay, great. So Tim Cunningham taught us one thing. Does anybody remember something that he taught us around pausing, right? Taking time to pause. And how much joy comes out of taking time to pause. So what we're going to do as a group, I want everybody to close their eyes. No cheating, no peeking. I'll see you. It's a small audience, so I can see everybody in here. So we did this as a team, and we did this as a group. So I want you to close your eyes and think about something. Think about the most memorable meal you've ever had. Think about what it tastes like. Think about the people that you were with. Think about what the experience was like. Okay. Does everybody have their favorite meal? Come back, open your eyes. So it's a little bit harder than you think, right? We were doing this as a team over dinner. We're like, geez, what is the best meal? But as you take that moment, and I'm thinking of Tim Cunningham here, you take that moment to pause. What you probably did was thought about a meal when you were a child. Maybe thought about a meal with your friends. Maybe it was a beer last night. Who knows what it could have been, but it brought you a moment of joy. And there's so much power in the joy. And from a power perspective and joy, we as a team find so much joy and power in food. So there's three main things that we're going to talk about today, but there's going to be a lot of things we're going to talk about today actually, but three themes. And that's food is simple. It should be grown from the earth. It should be free of preservatives, fillers, and free of all the things that are in food today that are kind of non-food chemicals, and it should nourish our bodies. It should bring people together. Secondarily, food is medicine. It has the power to heal you. It has the power to improve the patient experience, and it has the power to treat and prevent disease, which is pretty incredible. And three, we are huge advocates for real food. We are advocates in the community, and we would love for everybody to leave today and be advocates for real food and scratch cooked food and the power it has on the healing experience for patients and the ability to prevent disease. So this is a snapshot into our teaching kitchen. Allie, take it away.
Thanks, Chris. I'm super excited to be here. I love Planetree and I love Planetree conferences because a lot of the concepts that we talk about and we think about can be applied to food. So it makes my job really easy because it's super natural. It just flows with it. So today we're going to be talking about the Mediterranean diet. And it's actually kind of perfect. So anybody who had lunch here in the hotel today, it was very Mediterranean themed, right? There was a delicious antipasta platter that had grilled tomatoes with fresh herbs. There was a lot of olives, olive oil, fresh fish. So a lot of that stuff that you had for lunch, you're going to kind of see repeated here throughout our recipes today too. So the Mediterranean diet, it is part of the Mediterranean lifestyle. So we're going to mostly talk about the diet, but there's some key pieces to lifestyle. And it's actually, again, you're going to hear some repetition of thought here. So the Mediterranean lifestyle, they treat food as medicine, right? It has the power to heal us, and it also has the power to make us sick. Second, moderation is key in all things, not just diet, but in your life. And then third, your life needs to be filled with social and physical activity. So you're going to see those themes, but in food as well, as we talk through a lot of our recipes and give you culinary tips and maybe little anecdotes and stories. So the Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet's been studied extensively since about the 1950s. And what it was is they found that there was these 18 countries that surrounded the Mediterranean Sea, and people just had really good health, longevity, really low risks of prevalence of cardiovascular disease and stroke. And they were trying to figure out why, like what was it that was making this region so healthy? So in the 50s, they started doing a lot of studies on it. And they found about 7 different common characteristics specific to diet that has now really been attributed to that Mediterranean diet. So first, it's a very plant-based diet. It's full of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Second, minimally processed foods, and really a big focus on seasonal and local foods when possible. It's really limited on sweets, and oftentimes you're going to see fruits substituted as a daily dessert. It's actually a pretty moderate to high fat diet, which a lot of times we feel is kind of counterintuitive to today's day and age. Fat has really been demonized, but they weren't focusing really on the quantity of fat, but the type of fat. So most of that fat is going to be coming from plant-based sources and fatty fishes. Animal proteins, especially red meat, is consumed in limited quantities. Alcohol is consumed in moderation, generally with meals. And then finally, most of the foods you see are going to be seasoned with herbs and spices rather than salt. So keep that in mind as we walk through our recipes. I'm going to send it over to Chef Andrea, and she is going to give you the menu and what our first dish is. Chef?
Thank you, Allie. So we started everybody off with the Pomegranate Ginger Kombucha Mojito Mocktails over there. First up, I will be demoing just how easy it can be to make homemade hummus. Chef Rafa is going to teach us some knife skills, tips and tricks as he makes us a fresh tabbouleh salad. And then I will be showing you how to make a fruit-based, guilt-free banana walnut ice cream. And then for our last thing, we'll send everybody off to enjoy their evening with a turmeric golden milk. So for starters, let's make some hummus.
Hummus is super simple recipe. It has just a couple key ingredients for it, and it's something that we so often buy at the store when really it's very easy to make at home, and you can really change things up. So this is a great example of a way to incorporate more plant-based foods and minimally processed, so getting rid of a lot of those additives and preservatives that you get in the purchased or packaged hummus.
We will start with our list of ingredients here. I have got some tahini. Tahini is just a sesame paste made of ground up sesame seeds, some fresh garlic, fresh lemon juice, extra virgin olive oil, some cumin and salt for seasonings, and then we have our chickpeas. These particular chickpeas I brought with me from Montana. When we think of legumes grown in the United States, we might think of green beans and peas, or we grow a lot of soybeans or whatnot. Up in the Pacific Northwest, we actually grow a lot of lentils, dried beans, and chickpeas. So I thought I would bring these with me today. I've got my chickpeas in my food processor. I'm going to add my garlic, and I'm going to get those blending up until they are completely smooth.
So as this is blending up, how many of you have seen black chickpeas before? Right? There's a lot of varietals out there of different legumes, things like that. I've seen green chickpeas. There's a lot of variation that you can have. The nice thing about hummus is it's super versatile, and you can change up the ingredients a bunch. So Chef brought black chickpeas from where she's from. If you're in New Orleans, maybe you use some, I don't know, black-eyed peas to make your chickpeas or to make your hummus. But really trying to think about sourcing in your region and where you're at. We do that for more than just environmental health reasons. There's actually health benefits that are associated with eating seasonal and local. And that's because when we harvest produce, it's at its peak nutritional component, right? So right when we harvest it, it's at its apex. And as it sits and it's stored and it's transported and it comes from the farm to the warehouse, to the grocery store, to your house, and then 3 days later, maybe you're cooking with it, that nutritional value has declined. So we really want to look at local, your farmer's market, a CSA, or even better, if you have a green thumb and you can grow a garden, that's great. Mine went horrible this year. So I've been more farmer's market. But it's an easy way to kind of change it up a little bit and put your own flair on it too.
So I blended up my chickpeas until they were mostly smooth. And then I began adding the remainder of my ingredients. The tahini, lemon juice, and garlic went in there. Now I'm slowly adding my olive oil to get a nice smooth consistency. After I get all of this oil in there, we'll start light with our seasonings. We will do a little taste and we will get that dished up for presentation. That's coming together. A little bit of salt in here. Okay, that is looking pretty good. Then we'll see here, we have this nice, smooth, fresh made hummus. I am gonna go ahead and get that dished up for presentation.
So hummus can be, like we said, a lot of different things, right? So this really focusing on that plant-based diet. When I say plant-based, I'm not telling you need to eat vegetarian or you need to eat vegan or you need to eliminate animal proteins and dairy altogether. What we're asking is to rethink your plate. So what we're talking about is making sure your plate is full of fruits, vegetables, whole grains first and foremost, and then thinking about adding that chicken or some of those dairy components to it as well. I'm not telling you got to get rid of it altogether, right? A lot of us like our chicken, our steak, that kind of thing, but rather it's adding to our diet, adding more fruits, vegetables, whole grains. I'm going to say these things like 5 times, maybe 15 throughout. And just adding those into our diet as we consume other things as well.
So you will see here that this hummus we've just made, I simply garnished with a little extra drizzle of olive oil, some paprika for color, and then just some fresh chopped herbs that I had. And then another standard flavor that people regularly enjoy is this topped with roasted red peppers here. I personally love to use hummus as a dip for my veggies or a sandwich spread, even my salad dressing. And then at times I have even experimented with using hummus in homemade brownies. So a plain hummus, like without the garlic and spices, can actually replace the oil in your favorite brownie recipe. Nothing beats, hummus and tabbouleh salad, but Chef Rafa will have more on that shortly.
So we've already showed you one plant-based dish. Chef Rafa is going to show us another one. Chef, what are we making?
Hello, everyone. Today I'm really excited to be doing a demonstration on tabbouleh. Tabbouleh is a Middle Eastern salad with a lot of vibrant flavors, and it's very healthy for you. Let me go ahead and finish getting set up here.
So we are going to use bulgur wheat today, and Chris is going to send out, of course, samples, right? It can't be a food demonstration without samples. I know the way to people's hearts. So, okay, Chef, let's show us what you got.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, tabbouleh to me is one of my favorite salads to prepare. So today we have bulgur wheat. I found out actually making this salad here and trying to procure bulgur in this local area that I came across a really cool Middle Eastern store, and the amount of different types of bulgur, I was really impressed. There was a yellow bulgur, there was red bulgur, like I want to say maybe 21 different types of bulgur at this little Middle Eastern store. But for today's purposes, we're going to be using this red bulgur, and I really like to use fine grind number 2. There's a fine grind number 1, which is a little bit more milled, and this is a little bit more coarsed, and it does a really good job for like a little bite. So some of the other ingredients we're going to be using for our tabbouleh salad is going to be an English cucumber, some green onions, Italian parsley, fresh mint, some Roma tomatoes, and a nice little vinaigrette. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
Tabbouleh is wheat, right? There's a lot of different ways that we process wheat, and it actually has an impact on the nutritional quality of the wheat. So in America, a lot of processed foods, ultra-processed foods use flour, specifically all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour is wheat. It's the same as bulgur, comes from the same plant, maybe a different varietal, as we found out with all the different colors and types of bulgur wheat. That just means there's a lot of different types and colors of wheat too. But all-purpose flour, essentially, you get the berry from the stalk, they send it to the mill, they take the germ off, they take the bran off, they take the germ off and the bran off, and they leave just the endosperm. Then they grind that down, they sift it, they grind it down some more, they bleach it, and then they add nutrients back into that flour because it has been processed so much that most of those nutrients have actually been leached out, and it's pretty void. It's mostly just calories and carbohydrates. So that's pretty different than bulgur wheat. So bulgur wheat still has the bran, and just a little bit of the germ has been removed. And that's important because the bran and the germ is where almost all of your protein is, your iron, a bunch of B vitamins, a lot of other minerals as well. So in all-purpose flour, you're removing those components and it's just stripping it all out of there. But in bulgur, you still have that. That's also what kind of gives it that darker color here versus and you can see the same thing with rice too, right? Wild rice, brown rice versus white rice, the color difference. That's because the germ has been removed as well. So, Chef, how do we use the bulgur and the tabbouleh?
All right. So first of all, you want to get water boiling up to about 212 degrees, right, at a rapid boil. There's approximately 2 cups of bulgur here to about 6 cups of hot boiling water. And one of my favorite reasons why to do this is because as it's steeping, you actually can do the vegetable prep, right? So we're going to go ahead and give it a little stir there. We're just going to cover it with this cover right here, or at home with some plastic wrap. We're going to go ahead and set this off to the side, right? A tip that I missed as I was talking here, we're going to go ahead and add a wet, damp towel on the bottom of a cutting board, right? It really helps from preventing your cutting board to slide, right? Very, very important to do. I always do that, actually. So we're going to go ahead and start with this cucumber, and we're going to take the ends off, right? Another thing I do also, I leave a little scrap bin off to the side here, so I'm not throwing it on the floor, opening the trash can as I'm working on my veg prep, right? And we're going to go ahead and peel a little bit of the cucumber and leaving some of the skin there. Traditionally, cucumber is not in the tabbouleh salad, but I really love the crunch that it adds to the tabbouleh salad. We're going to cut it in half again. Trying to make some nice clean cuts here. And what I like to do is I like to remove the seed in the middle of the cucumber. Right? It really adds a crunch texture to the salad. nice clean cuts. So we're going to go ahead and cut this into a cut that's called it's called a batonnet, but nice clean cuts there.
So as chef is working on these cucumbers, he left some of the peels on the cucumber. This is going back to that zest, right? So a lot of produce has peels, edible peels or rinds, and they're actually super dense in nutrients, specifically antioxidants. So antioxidants work in our body to essentially defend us against oxidation or inflammation. And they do the same thing in plants too, in that they defend the plants against like pests or weather or sunlight, things like that. So a lot of the antioxidants or nutrients are super concentrated in the peels. So if you can keep the peels, do. If it's a rind that maybe isn't super edible, like lemon, right? I'm not going to just be chewing on a piece of lemon. I wouldn't recommend it. You can zest it and put it into dishes like hummus or tabbouleh or anything that you want that extra zip to as well.
Cool. And actually, another reason why to take the seeds out that I've learned is like when you're sauteing zucchini or yellow squash at home, I don't know if you ever noticed that it gets soggy right away. So, but if you remove the seeds, kind of like the way I just did in my demonstration right now, it really keeps the vegetable nice and al dente. Game changer, bowl scraper, right? Or a bench scraper. So now that we cut the cucumbers, we're gonna go ahead and start with our Roma tomatoes. All right. I'm gonna share a couple safety knife tips too as I'm doing this, right? It's always very important to have a nice sharp knife. And the way you hold it, you wanna go ahead and hold it kind of like this on the bottom and then put a right knuckle on this side of your knife. And then I like to put my thumb on the left side of the knife, right? It kind of keeps my knife, I'm in total control of the knife. It's not gonna cut myself, right? And then I also remove the seeds from this because you don't wanna have a bunch of extra liquid in your tabbouleh salad, right? There's a couple different ways you can remove the seeds, but I really love to do it this way because it gets some nice clean cuts. All right. We're gonna go ahead and kind of cut this into some julienne cuts, right? And then also I want to share with you, it's called the claw grip. I don't know if some of you are familiar with it, but what you want to do is you want to grab your, like for instance right now, your tomato with your palm, and then kind of curl your fingers underneath, and then your knuckles are going to point out a little bit, right? And then you're going to rub your knuckles against the blade here, and then it's just doing nice little strokes, right? Can't cut yourself, especially not on camera, right? So we're gonna go ahead and mince this up. I've seen people do it different ways. Sometimes they use a strainer, right? They cut the tomatoes up, they chop them up, and then they use a strainer to kind of remove the moisture from there. And one of the other reasons why I love this bench scraper is because what you don't wanna do is use your knife to scrape that cutting board. That'll really make your knife nice and dull. Kind of makes me cringe when I see my cooks doing that, by the way. So they all have a bench scraper or a bowl scraper in their station. What you don't want to do is do this kind of thing, right? I use the back of it to scrape if I am going to do that. Gonna go ahead and just chop these up right away.
So the chef's finishing up that tomato. So if you are going to use produce in general, but if you're specifically those rinds or skins, make sure you're washing them before you eat them. But when you do that, the best way to do it is actually just with cold running water and either a thick bristled brush or your fingers. Avoid using dish soap or detergent. It's actually not meant to be consumed. You can get vegetable specific wash, you can, but using water and your fingers really works to get that debris off. That's more what we're trying to get as well.
Thank you, Ali. All right, so now we're going to go on to this fresh parsley here. I love Italian parsley. There's a little bit more flavor in the Italian parsley than just regular curly parsley. However, curly parsley is easier to chop up, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold the parsley leaves under and like this. Then we're gonna roll it into a ball. Kind of makes it a little faster, a little bit more efficient, right? And then you kind of slice first. I know we call it chopped parsley, but you want to, this first couple strokes are going to be slicing. Nice slow strokes here. Taking your time, making sure we don't cut ourselves, right? It's all about safety. Now on your brochures there, on the back part, one of those QR codes, there's like some of my favorite top 10 knife safety skills, cutting tips so you don't cut yourself. It's all about sharp knife safety. Now that we did some nice even slices there, we're gonna go ahead and chop this now. And what I like to do is I like to put the top of my hand on the top of the blade and kind of put my fingers up. Good thing I'm only making a 6 batch here. Now for that tabbouleh I made for earlier, that was a lot of parsley. It was a good workout.
He made the entire kitchen just smell like parsley. It was awesome to walk into. So parsley, just like almost any herbs and spices, are super, again, nutrient dense, right? The theme, right? Plant-based foods have a lot of nutrients. Parsley specifically is really high in vitamin K, which is really beneficial for bone health, but also it works really well as a digestive. So it helps with reducing water retention and bloating. Fun fact. So tabbouleh is a lot of parsley in there. So it's a great option for that gut health as well.
One thing I didn't mention was this. Notice I saved my veg prep here. It's a great source for compost. The stems are off to the side for your guys' stalks and whatnot. Or like me, I have a rabbit at home. She loves it when I make tabbouleh salad, by the way. It's a great little snack for her. Her name is Dutch. So now we're off to the fresh mint. A little trick too on the mint, it's kind of like a lot of herbs, right? Just sitting there picking all the leaves. What you can do is you kind of hold the top, kind of go down this way like that, and the leaves come right off. It also works very well with fresh thyme and rosemary, by the way. So we're gonna go ahead and roll up this mint like I did earlier to the parsley. Some nice quick slices here. It's called the chiffonade cut.
And we don't expect any of you to be cutting herbs as fast as Chef Rafa does. I think I would be missing my fingers.
I've done it a couple times there. All right, so now we have all of our veg prep pretty much done except our scallions. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this end off. They're kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of messed up there. So I always take that first part off, right? And I like to use all of it, from the green to the white. It's okay with me, more flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and run our knife through there. Nice, small little cuts, taking your time. I'm not taking my time there, huh?
Again, he's done this a few times.
I love cooking, by the way. This is like methodical, right? You get to hang out with a nice glass of wine or beverage. I'm pretty sure some of you have enjoyed some of those in New Orleans.
So the Mediterranean diet focuses, right? We talked a lot about how we don't season a lot with salt, but more herbs and spices. So again, just like the parsley, lot of nutrients there, that vitamin K. Garlic is really good for anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of benefits to herbs and spices that can help you in preventative care and just a healthier lifestyle. So the more you can season with herbs and spices, they don't have to be fresh. You can do dried as well. There's still a lot of nutrients in there. But season as much as you can with herbs and spices instead of salt, or reduce the amount of salt that you're doing in those dishes.
All right, now I'm gonna just make a simple vinaigrette, like super simple. Kind of like the tabbouleh salad, it's very simple. So we're gonna start off with squeezing this lemon right here. We're gonna just give it a quick roll. Kind of try to maximize the amount of juice out of that lemon, right?
So as he's making this olive oil or this dressing, Dressing is another one of those things that we buy a lot in the store, and it's actually really easy to make. Like all types of dressing, oil-based dressings, or even your ranch. It's actually really easy to make and simple to make dressings at home. And you're getting rid of a lot of those stabilizers, those weird ingredients that you can't quite pronounce, that you probably wouldn't recognize if you saw what it was. This one is primarily olive oil based. So again, we talked about the Mediterranean diet being primarily, actually a pretty high fat diet, and it's mostly from olive oil. And that's because we're looking at unsaturated fats or omega-3 fats, which are going to come from fatty fish, instead of animal-based fats. And we do that because saturated fats have been proven and shown to increase things like LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, increase your risk for cardiovascular disease and stroke. Where unsaturated fats, those are going to be things that come from plants, again, that theme, plants, right, are going to do the reverse. They lower your LDL, they tend to increase HDL, and decrease your risk for cardiovascular disease and stroke.
So notice how I removed the seeds out of the lemon. Those seeds are not great to eat, by the way. So I didn't have one of those fancy little squeezers, but that normally gets rid of them. Or you can use a strainer. So now we're mincing the garlic, right? A lot of people shy away from fresh garlic, right? Because like, what do you do with all this extra garlic when you only need a clove or two for your salad, right? They work very well. Like at my house, we actually peel it, put it in a Ziploc bag, and keep it in the freezer. And when you never need some fresh garlic, it's ready to go, right? So we're just gonna run our knife through here real briefly. Try to mince up that garlic as much as possible.
So one of the easiest ways to tell if you are getting saturated fats or unsaturated fats beyond knowing the source of it is if it's liquid at room temperature. So saturated fats, so let's think like butter or bacon grease after it has cooled, is going to be solid at room temperature. Other unsaturated fats, so think olive oil, avocado oil, is actually going to be liquid at room temperature. That's one of the easiest ways to just at a glance know if you're going to get a saturated or unsaturated fat.
So we have lemon juice in here, a little bit of garlic. We're going to put some fresh cracked black pepper, some sea salt, and then our extra virgin olive oil. We picked up this really nice olive oil. It really makes a difference, by the way. So how do I stir it, right? Here's another little trick that I love to do. When I don't have anybody to hold my bowl, kind of get a wet, damp towel, put my bowl right there so it doesn't move. It just kind of drills it in. It's not as an emulsified dressing, but like you would put in a blender, we kind of want a broken, old-fashioned dressing here. That's good right there. Now we're going to put it together. Check on our tabbouleh. What was that, like maybe 7 minutes? Look at that. It's ready to go. But I have my backup over here just in case. We're going to use the backup.
So as we talk about it, we've already talked about, plant-based diets, that minimally processed, and really that emphasis on if you can make it at home, do. You're going to know what's in it. You're going to be avoiding a lot of those stabilizers, preservatives, again, those things you can't even pronounce. But you're also going to have the option to switch out those ingredients to things that are maybe more seasonal or local or taste better in your preference. They talk a lot about variety is key, or variety is the spice of life, right? It's the same thing with food. You want to eat a lot of different types of food and a lot of variety. There is no such thing as a superfood. There's not going to be one food that's going to give you every single thing you need and you're good, that green juice for the rest of your life. That's false. So have a lot of different things. Do something simple as just changing the ingredient out of a recipe will give you some of that variety.
Now that I took up all that extra cucumber and tomato that I cut, got excited. They were chopping all those vegetables, I guess. We're going to go ahead and add some of the bulgur wheat into the salad here. We're going to give it a little stir. I love bulgur wheat. It's one of my favorite things, especially out in California, right? Eating a potato salad. You go to a little barbecue and you have a little potluck and you bring that potato salad, and 2 hours later it has that mayonnaise-based salad, right? Not probably great for the stomach, but a tabbouleh holds nice and great. I like to meal prep it. I make it at home on Sunday and then just add it with some protein throughout the week. It works very, very well for me. Or you can have it by itself. Add some of this dressing into here. And this dressing works well on a nice mixed green salad or whatnot. How was the tabbouleh? Was pretty good, yeah. Thank you. So there you have it. A little tabbouleh salad. And then we're gonna go ahead and plate it up on this nice dish here.
Pretty important too, right? Because we eat with our eyes. So a lot of times if you can have something that looks nice, the bright, vibrant colors, it makes it more appealing. And there's actually some research that says that people then think it tastes better than the food that maybe is bland in color isn't very appealing. So presentation is important.
Today we're lucky too because Chef Andrea made this amazing hummus. First time I ever actually, coming out of California, I've never seen a black chickpea, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna put that on my menu. So we're gonna go ahead and lay some of this hummus down, right? Give it a little spread there. We're gonna go ahead and add this tabbouleh salad. There you have it.
There's dinner.
There's dinner. Thank you.
So we are running a little over on time. We do have one more recipe for y'all. We understand if you're not going to be able to stay for it. I really encourage you because it's actually my favorite one. But if you need to leave, please feel free to do that. So our next dish, we're going to be talking about dessert, right? We have a big problem in the United States. The average adult American consumes about 17 teaspoons of added sugar every single day. Most of that is going to come from artificial sources. Corn syrup, super concentrated fruit juices, not natural things. And a lot of that's going to be coming from sugar-sweetened beverages, desserts, sweets, things like that. So our goal and what the Mediterranean diet focuses on is reduced sugar. They don't really do a lot of sweets. Instead, they really focus on fruit and fruit in replacement of desserts. So Chef has an amazing recipe. It's my favorite one, and it's me geeking out as a dietitian. Chef, what are we going to be doing?
So, as Sally had mentioned in her opening statement, in this lifestyle, fruit is often consumed as the daily dessert. And so let's get a glimpse of what that might look like by making this banana walnut ice cream. We are going to be using a blender for this recipe. And then let's talk about this list of ingredients. For today's demo, I'm going to be using bananas, peanut butter, and walnuts. That's it for this recipe. Okay, I have got here some peeled frozen bananas. I always peel them before I freeze them. I love not having to peel them out of, take them out of the frozen peels.
Really, really hard if you haven't tried it before. I just generally give up.
So I've got these in the blender and I'm just gonna get them mixing. They're gonna kind of transform from somewhat crumbly and then it's gonna get really, really creamy. Let's get this going. And then, as I had mentioned for today's demo, I'm gonna be using peanut butter and walnuts. I have made this recipe with almond butter, sun butter, omitted the walnuts, added granola and things like that. Every one of them is equally delicious. Okay, let me get this mixing up a bit.
So as Chef is making that ice cream, so often, can you guys hear me? Okay. So often with ice cream, so the ice cream that you get in stores isn't your grandma's ice cream. It's not the stuff that you make at home, right? It's full of saturated fats. So again, we talked about that. That's going to lead to heart disease, a lot of other negative impacts. It's full of sugar, and specifically added sugars in non-natural forms. It is full of preservatives, stabilizers, flavors, and different colors, where what chef is showing us is 3 ingredients, and it's like the easiest thing ever. Okay.
So we've got our bananas relatively smooth. I called it there at a certain point, right? But they are looking nice and creamy. So let's just get that into this bowl. Like, look at the texture. Like, that is just frozen bananas pureed up. And then I literally am just going to stir in this peanut butter and these chopped walnuts, and then that is going to be it. Get this in here, mix it up really well.
So I live in Northern California, and it's really hot in the summers. And I'm not from California, I'm from Montana. So summers are brutal for me, the 100 degrees, 115. This is one of my saving graces. I really like this ice cream recipe, and I actually like to add strawberries. So either frozen or fresh strawberries, I add it while it's blending, and I actually get strawberry ice cream. Put a little dark chocolate on the top or cocoa powder, and you basically have chocolate-covered strawberries.
Let's see here. So this is something as simple as like natural sugars being combined with healthy fats, and look at this texture and consistency that we're getting. And so I personally think of other ways that we can experiment. I use things like avocados and bananas and cacao for like decadent chocolate flavor in ice cream, or even like the bananas and full-fat coconut milk and macadamia nuts and toasted coconut and things like that for that tropical flavor is also really delicious. And of course, my favorite is adding chopped strawberries and pineapples, and it's like I can have a banana split out of a fruit-based dessert, which is super cool. So this is pretty well mixed together. Before I dish this up, I'm just going to brush a little pure maple syrup on some extra banana slices, and I'm just going to brulee them really quick.
And I'm going to stand back while she uses the torch. But so it's not super realistic for me to just say you can't have sugar. Don't have sugar in your life. That's just not realistic. So instead, my recommendation is if you have sugar, you're going to add sugar to recipes, try to do it from natural sources as much as possible. So honey, pure maple syrup, things like that. There's actually going to be minerals that you're going to find from that is going to help you or add some extra nutrient to it. And the goal there is still moderation in small amounts, because sugar, whether it's honey or maple syrup or the non-natural sources, are still going to be a lot of calories that we don't necessarily need in the American diet. So you can see she is bruleeing the bananas. And what that simply means is that she's taking the sugar that's on there, adding a heat source to it, and essentially caramelizing the sugars on there, and giving it this new depth of flavor that you don't have if you're just putting maple syrup on there.
Okay, that ought to do the trick. So for presentation, let's just grab a few of these banana slices. A little scoop of our banana walnut ice cream. Maybe garnish with a few walnuts, and there we have it, delicious guilt-free dessert.
I really encourage you guys to try this at home. It blew my mind the first time I did it because it is super smooth. Like, it's actually ice cream on that too. So we showed you 3 recipes. We talked a lot about what that Mediterranean diet is. They all seemed pretty simple, right? For the most part, something you guys could do at home. Yeah. The thing is, like, a lot of times we try to make nutrition and healthy eating super complicated, and it doesn't have to be. So Chris talked about real food, right? It comes from the earth. It's a real ingredient. It's simple. So we're trying to show you that you can eat healthy and it tastes really good, but it's simple and it's easy. So we talked about plant-based eating, avoiding processed foods, increasing your amount of fruit in your diet instead of sweets, healthy fats, right? So using olive oil as much as possible. We talked about using herbs and spices instead of salts as well. So we're doing all of that in our diet, and if we do that, little bits of pieces of it, right? It's small incremental changes over a continued period of time makes change. And it leads to a healthy lifestyle, not a diet. We're not here to tell you that you need to eat a diet. We're here to say, let's change our lifestyle and change the way we focus and think about food. Again, food is medicine. It has the power to impact our lives and our health. But again, Chris talked about that pausing piece of it, and he asked you to remember your favorite meal. A lot of times those favorite meals might not have been the food itself, but it's who you shared it with. So again, we talk about food has a lot of power, but the environment around food, how you live with food, how much it's integrated into our lives is powerful. Whether that's you personally, your family, the patients that we serve, there's a lot of impact there. So we're pretty much wrapped up. I really appreciate you all's time. We are going to be here if you want questions or you just want to geek out on food and nutrition. We are some of the biggest food nerds out there. We can talk all day. So just parting words. Food is medicine, moderation, everything you do, and then enjoy a life that's full of social and physical activity. Enjoy the gala, meet some new people, and I hope you had a great conference. Oh, there's the last sample. I forgot. We have golden milk for you all. So golden milk is made with turmeric. It is a very good anti-inflammatory herb. It has ginger in it. It has a little bit of honey and then coconut milk. So it's a little spicy, but it's very, very creamy. We're serving it at room temperature, but you can do it iced or hot, and it's really delicious and easy to make. So grab one on your way out or on your way to come ask us questions and chat. Have a good one.